Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shyam Sundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Singh Dev Bhagwan, Shishi Gonitai, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So today we wanted to look at chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. And the title of chapter 6 is Dhyan Yoga. So what is the summary? At the end of the 5th chapter, Krishna briefly mentioned the system of Astanga Yoga. And Astanga Yoga is a very strict, regulated, focused regime of an ascetic yogi. That's really quite hard because, well, we'll see in a few minutes. In the present day, millions of people worldwide practice elements of this path, primarily known as Hatha Yoga, which is the sort of the bodily postures. And Pranayam is the breathing exercises, which offers benefit for physical and emotional well-being. However, yoga actually means to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what yoga means. So nowadays, the modern yoga, Hatha Yoga and Pranayam, may not have such a significant spiritual benefit because there's no connection with the Supreme. So this is important to understand, that yoga means connecting with God. In this chapter, the path of Astanga Yoga is explained in its entirety. The themes of this chapter are as follows. The state of the mind, the detailed practice of Astanga Yoga, which is impractical in this age. And Arjun asks this practice, as it is very difficult, and Krishna guides him accordingly. So actually, if I just do one thing, that's better. So there's 4 themes. Firstly, he talks about the state of the mind. Then he talks about the Astanga Yoga practice. Then Arjun questions him. How can we do this? He asks. And then there's another question he asks, to which Krishna answers very nicely. What happens to the spiritualist who cannot achieve the end result? Is he lost in both this world and the spiritual world? No, there's 5 themes. And then we talk about the yogi who performs bhakti yoga is the best. So let's make a start. Priyanjali, would you like to read?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic. Not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. What is called renunciation? You should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one who can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire or sense of gratification, for one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility to such a man. Happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi for mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
Very good. Thank you for reading this, Priyanjali. These 9 verses are very, very powerful. Especially we'll see this one here. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So we think our enemies are outside. Somebody doesn't like us or we don't like, and we think they're the enemy. But actually, if we're not careful, the enemy may be a lot closer to home within our own body. Anyway, what's the summary? The mind is that voice within, essentially a storehouse of memories and experiences that offer options to the individual. An uncontrolled mind will agitate, misguide, and entangle the soul within this world, forcing us to succumb to our lower nature of lust, anger, and greed. So this is very important. Whilst you're young, it is very, very good to try to control this mind. The control mind, on the other hand, acts as a friend on our spiritual journey, helping us make progressive and healthy choices which bring us to God. One experiences tranquility, peace, and freedom from the duality of happiness and distress. So, the lesson to learn. As Krishna describes to Arjun in the 2nd chapter, we are not the body, right? So that was the first instruction. We are not the body. So some people think that we are the mind, right? Many people think, okay, if we're not the body, we'll be the mind. However, here Krishna informs us that we are not the mind either, as it can be the friend or enemy of the soul. Indeed, we can observe the mind because people also does what the mind dictates, the soul does not come into the picture. So sometimes, we don't understand who we are. We think we're the body. If we think, okay, we're beyond the body, we're the mind. So because we are constantly just doing what the mind says, we don't understand necessarily that there is a difference between us, the soul, and the mind. There's a difference between them. How do we know that? Because we can observe the mind. Often you see the mind will say, let's do this. Instead of doing homework, let's watch the television. And if we do what the mind says, then that means the mind is our enemy. But if we can, by our intelligence, control the mind and say, no, I will not watch television, I will do my homework or my studies, then our mind is our friend because it's controlled. So let's have a little look at this in terms of pictorially. The senses, there's 5 senses, and we'll talk more about that in later chapters. But the 5 senses are basically the eyes, ears, nose, eyes, ears, nose, genitals, the tongue, like that. Now the five senses, eyes, ears, touch as well. Touch is also one of the senses. Eyes, ears. So it's sight, hearing, smell. Yeah, good. Touch, and one more. What was the other one? Sound we've covered, right? Sound, seeing, smelling, feeling, tasting the tongue. That's right. So these five senses are very, very strong. And we are the soul here. We are the soul here. The driver is the intelligence. It's trying to control the senses by the mind. See, these reins are the mind. So the intelligence is trying to control the senses, but it's very hard because the senses are very wild, like wild horses. And the passenger is seated in this body, petrified. This because the mind is not under control. All right, let's look at the next section. Rohan, are you able to read? Okay, it's no problem. Devina?
Jai Shri Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very good. It's a very long section now, okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Great.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses and activities, and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi. O Arjun, if one eats too much, or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough, he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self.
Okay, just 1 second. You still got more, but there's a couple of very interesting verses here. There's no possibility of one becoming yogi if one eats too much or eats too little. So we can be regulated in how much we eat and also sleep. One sleeps too much, not enough. So this sleep is also important to energize the body. So, and Krishna explains that one who is regulated in eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can, protect himself. Okay, keep going.
In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from mental
mental activities by practice of yoga. The perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established, thus one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this he thinks that there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes that his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor he is ever lost to me. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true quality of all beings, in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjun.
Very well read.
Thank you.
Fantastic reading.
Hare Krishna.
That was probably the longest session in terms of number of verses we read in one go. About 23 verses. And this is where Krishna explains one way to control the mind is through the process of Astanga Yoga, which includes Dhyana Yoga, the practice of meditation. Krishna explains, okay, so this is what you have to do. Living in seclusion on your own, practicing celibacy, under strict regulations of eating and sleeping. The yogi would sit in a perfectly erect position, focusing his consciousness on the Supreme. Meditate in this way for not a few minutes, but for many years, maintaining silence. Why does Krishna go into all this detail? Well, Arjun wanted to stop fighting and go to the forest, so Krishna blinds Arjun with the science of Dhyana Yoga. So, the science described by Krishna, there's a lesson to learn. It's difficult to practice in its entirety in this age of Kali Yuga. And this is what Krishna wanted Arjun to understand. He wanted to show Arjun that he cannot become a sannyasi. Sannyasi is one who's given up all attachment to this material world, given up everything. Give up his job, his house, his family, his car, whatever he has, he gives it up, goes to the forest. But Krishna wanted to show Arjuna, he can't just do that in this age. His nature won't allow him. And therefore, especially this text 16, which you read, is very interesting. Not eat too much, not eat too little, not sleep too much, not sleep too little. So, very important to understand that. That's a very strong lesson to understand that in this age of Kali Yuga, if we moderate our behavior, our habits, then we will be able to sustain some sort of spiritual direction. If we overindulge, trying to enjoy our senses, then we'll be lost. So anyway, let's see what Arjun's response is to this. Oh yes, so this is interesting. This is a little bit of what this Astanga Yoga is all about. This is an overview according to the Patanjali Yoga system. There's Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. So you have to go through all these stages in order to make progress on the spiritual path. So firstly, you need to control all the senses. You have to do different tapasya, different poses, control the breathing, withdraw the senses, focus, meditate, and then ultimately become spiritually absorbed. Very tough in this age of Kali Yuga to get spiritual perfection through Astanga Yoga. And we will see why in a minute, because Arjun questions the Lord. He questions the Lord after hearing all of this. Right, here he is. Here's his questions. So, who'd like to read? We haven't heard Alpa Shukla. Would you like to read? If not, Jayashri Patel, would you like to read?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Hi. Oh, Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh, Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind. Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion.
Right. Thank you so much. So Arjun questions the Lord. This is really interesting, isn't it? This Bhagavad Gita is a conversation, but it's actually a Q&A between Arjun and Krishna. So Krishna just explained this system of Astanga Yoga, and Arjun is saying, no way, it's impossible. I can't do what you're telling me to do. My mind is far too strong. It's easier for me to control the wind than to control my mind. And the wind, we know how strong it is. So then Krishna gives him an answer. Yes, absolutely, you're right. Krishna says to Arjun, it is difficult to conquer the mind, but it is possible. How? By two things. Practice. Practice means we try, for example, when we do the mantra, when we're chanting the mantra, one round, takes 6 minutes, we'll see the mind go somewhere. We bring it back again to the sound of the chanting. We'll see it go again, bring it back. That's practice. We keep bringing it back to the focus of attention. So by this practice, in due course of time, the mind will be controlled. It just takes time. So two ways. One is by practice, and the other is by detachment. What does detachment mean? It means don't worry about the world around you too much. Things will come and go. Things will happen. And, whether we are involved or not, they will continue to happen. So having this sense of detachment, not being too attached to our possessions, to our relationships, that will also help us control the mind. This is a little hard, especially when you're young, but later on in life, this is a must, where you have this sense of detachment of things around you. What was that quote today you heard? So Jayanti was telling me about a wonderful quote that she read today. Here it is. Our attachments are like a rented house that we don't usually leave until we are evicted. So we have this rented house of attachments. And until we're thrown out by the Lord taking us out of this body, giving us another body, we won't leave. So attachment is a dangerous thing, very dangerous thing. Anyway, what's the lesson? When we chant japa is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. It's a test of how controlled our mind is. If we can focus on the sound of the holy names throughout the chanting, then our mind is our friend. If not, then really we have an uncontrolled mind, which may be our worst enemy. So normally at the end of the session, we chant one round. Today, actually, we've done it at the beginning because after this, I have a few things to do. So tomorrow, we will practice this chanting of one round. And we'll see where is the mind. And perhaps devotees can unmute tomorrow and say, were they able to control the mind through the chanting, or was the mind all over the place? But this is the best way. You know, as soon as you sit down to meditate, million thoughts come through the head. And this is the test. You know, how focused are we? How much in control of our intelligence are we that we can control the mind? And this is a very important thing, because if one can control the mind, one can achieve anything in this world, because you've always got a friend with you. And there's nothing that is unachievable for that person who has controlled his mind, because he's always focused. So if one's mind is not controlled and it's all over the place, and the mind dictates to the soul what the body will do, then the mind is not necessarily a friend. Okay, good. So, Rohan, are you able to unmute?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, you go for it.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mind I can't minded
Mindedness, yeah.
sorry
That's okay. Yes.
and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. O Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. On taking birth On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal.
Brilliant. Thank you. Very good, Rohan. So, Arjun asked the question because he just heard about this process, which is really hard. So he asked the question, what happens if one faithfully takes to this yogic process, but later falls away without perfecting his spiritual consciousness? The unsuccessful spiritualist is seemingly left in no man's land, having failed to attain the spiritual satisfaction, and simultaneously he's squandered his opportunities for worldly pleasure. Great question. Really good question by Arjun. So what if you fail in your journey? So Krishna says, don't worry. He appeases all such fears by explaining that whoever takes up a genuine spiritual process, he's eternally benefited, even if they don't perfect it. If we don't complete it in one life, we carry on in the next life from the same point, and the individual thus evolves towards spiritual perfection. So we have to understand this very important point. Krishna says that whoever does good is never overcome by evil. And even after trying unsuccessfully to become a spiritualist, he doesn't achieve perfection. He'll continue. He'll be born in a righteous family or rich aristocracy, or he will take birth in a family of yogis, those devotees who not yogis necessarily, devotees of God, and continue in his journey. So this is very important to understand. Nothing is lost by taking the path of bhakti. Everything to gain, nothing to lose. So what's the lesson? When we take shelter of Krishna and perform bhakti, it is never lost. In fact, the Lord magnifies our contribution. He will not look at the bad qualities, only the good. And there's some examples. For example, Putana. If you know the story of Krishna when he was a tiny baby, 6 days old, Putana, a nurse or a demon in disguise of a nurse, came and kidnapped him and tried to poison him with her breast milk. But what did Krishna? And Krishna finished off Putana. He sucked the life out of her. But what happened to Putana? She actually attained the spiritual world. Why? She meant to kill Krishna. But Krishna never sees any bad. He only sees the good. He accepted Putana's breast milk, the poison, as an offering to him. And he liberated her, made her a nurse in the spiritual world. This is the glory of Krishna. Aghasur, it was a cave demon. And he swallowed all the cowherd boys when Krishna was, I think, 3 or 4. And at that time, Aghasur just had one tiny thought. He was thinking, oh, how happy these gopas are to be with Krishna. Just that one thought. And Krishna finished Aghasur. But Aghasur also attained the spiritual world. Shishupal, he insulted Krishna 100 times. And then Krishna used his chakra to finish off Shishupal. But Krishna did not take any of those 100 insults as insults. He took them as compliments. He turned them around. So Krishna never sees any bad. He only sees the good in us. Very powerful. Very powerful. All right, last bit now. Okay. So I can do these two verses. Last bit of the 6th chapter. A yogi is greater than a ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjun, in all circumstances, be a yogi. And of all yogis, this is such a powerful verse, one of the most powerful verses in the Gita. The one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinking of me within himself, renders transcendental loving service to me. He is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. This is my opinion. So this is Bhakti Yoga. And this is very powerful. After summarizing the arduous process of dhyan, meditation, and astanga, the chapter concludes with a ray of hope for us. Krishna reaffirms that the perfection and goal of all yoga system is to help the individual become fully conscious of God at all times. While all yoga systems are certainly beneficial, the easiest and most efficient and essential path is known as Bhakti Yoga. The yoga ladder is as follows. So in this age of Kali, we have easy access to Bhakti Yoga. So we've seen this before. This is the yoga ladder. And Bhakti Yoga is right at the top. And we're very lucky because we don't have to go through these different yoga systems. We can go directly to Bhakti Yoga. Instead of taking the staircase to the spiritual world, we can take the elevator. So the elevator is Bhakti Yoga. And what is Bhakti Yoga? Simply connecting to God. Simply connecting to God in everything that we do. That's as easy as it is. Very, very easy. And this 47th verse is such a powerful verse. Hang on a sec, sorry. Let me just go back to that. Because it's got a few facets to it. He who has great faith in Krishna takes shelter in him, always abides in him, renders transcendental loving service, cooking for Krishna, chanting his holy names, always thinking of Krishna. This is the perfection of all yoga. So that's his text number 47, the last text that we read. This is why Bhakti Yoga is so powerful. Okay, any questions? I see some actually already in the chat. Let me just go through those.
Prabhuji, can you go back that yoga?
Oh yeah, sure.
Ashta yoga system you saw before, I think. No, that no.
This one?
In beginning, in
This one?
yoga, no, yoga, only Ashta yoga.
Oh, the pranayams. Yeah. This one.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay.
This is basically a Astanga yoga.
Yeah,
and it's very hard to practice this in this age of Kali Yuga. This one
Thank
you
you.
need a controlled mind.
Yeah. Yamen.
So let me just take these questions, by the way. If your mind is, this is Priyanjali, if your mind is both a friend and an enemy, what happens? Which place do you go? Hell or heaven? Or stay on earth? Or go to the very, very bottom of earth? Well, it just depends. It's so complicated because sometimes the mind is our friend. Sometimes we can control it. Sometimes we can't control it. But if we do something really crazy, then the karmic reaction will follow. And that's why it's important while you're young to try to control the mind so that you don't do anything crazy. Yeah. If it is your enemy and best friend, it can't be both. It can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. Sometimes it is a friend, sometimes it's an enemy, but it's got to be one or the other, right? It can't be both at the same time. But sometimes it can be your friend, sometimes it can be your enemy. I think best thing is to do is to try to, from a young age, to keep a tab on the mind, keep a control on the mind. And higher than the mind is intelligence. And higher than the intelligence is the Atma. So through the intelligence, one can use, well, you can control the mind. And how many thoughts exactly come to your mind? It just depends. It can be 80, 90,000 thoughts. It just depends. There's no exact figure, but there's a lot of thoughts that come to our head. Okay. So any questions? Any questions? Priyanjali, are you happy with the answers?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you for your questions. Very good. Yes, sir, Prabhupada.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. I mean, I did understand what you said about the mind. But when you say mind is your friend and mind is your enemy, but doing that housework, I'm controlling my mind. I'm talking about myself, not anybody else. Like as I'm doing washing up, my mind is on the washing up. But in the same time, if I'm cooking, I have to keep the mind even in the cooking. So is it good or is it not good? Like
It's very good.
you will
It's
think,
good.
oh, food will burn. So
yeah, no,
you
it's good. It's good. Very good. Because while you're cooking, if you're thinking of other things, you're going to make a mistake, right? You're going to make a mistake. Now, the thing also, especially with cooking, when we're cooking, our consciousness is actually entering the food. So if we're cooking with a good consciousness, God consciousness, singing bhajans, remembering God, then that consciousness transfers into the food, and whoever eats that food will also benefit through that consciousness. But if one is cooking and our consciousness is not good, we're cooking angry because we're angry at somebody, we're cooking, then that consciousness will enter the food as well. And whoever eats that food will also attain that same sort of consciousness. That anger will rub off on them as well. So cooking actually is one of the most important aspects of our daily life. If we get it right, one, you're cooking for the Lord, you're doing bhakti yoga. Second, because whoever eats that, and then you're offering it to God, becomes prasad. And when you eat that or honor that prasad, you are spiritually advancing. So cooking, we should not think it's an ordinary activity. It's an extraordinary activity. It's a very, very important activity. And we should plan our cooking. We should, and while we're cooking, we should put on something that will help us, singing along to bhajans, listening to a lecture on spiritual life. And that will enhance what you're doing. This is pure bhakti. Cooking is because the Lord likes to eat and we want him to eat. If we can do something for him to please him, then cooking, Radharani cooks us a different dish for Krishna every single day and he loves it. So, this is a very important activity actually.
But at the same time, if you're doing other work, is it like everyday's task? Your mind and your soul are working together. So what do you do? Do you do what your mind says or what you do what your soul says?
If the mind is telling you to do something that you shouldn't do, then there's a problem and you do it. Then there's a problem. But if you can say if the intelligence can control the mind and say, no. At this moment in time, my focus is this. Usually what the problem is, we're not focused on what we're supposed to do.
All right.
Let me just take a question from Rohan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Rohan.
Hare Krishna. I have a question about text 24. where it talks about one should abandon without exception all material desires.
Mm.
My question is that what if you've got to you've got to get money to provide for yourself? Isn't that a material desire?
Yes, it is. This is why Krishna is explaining this Astanga Yoga, right? He's saying, oh, hang on, that's not come up. 1 second. Let me see why it has not come up. Stop share. 1 second. Be weird. Yeah. 1 second. I'm just bringing up the verse so that people, devotees, can see it. Aha, got it. So you're talking about this verse. One should engage oneself in practice yoga with determined faith, not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires, born of mental speculation. Thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Remember, Krishna is explaining a Stanga yoga process. And if that's what Arjun wanted to do, he wanted to escape from his duties and go to the forest. So Krishna is saying, right, you want to go to the forest? This is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to abandon all material desires and control your senses from all sides by the mind. So this is something, it's not practical in this day and age. As you said, we have to go to work and so many things that we have to do, which are, if you like, material activities. However, Rohan, it's a really good question. Actually, we can try to do, if you have to go to work, for example, we can have the consciousness that I'm going to work in order to earn money for the family, but also to further your work, my dear Lord. I want to use the resources I have to do bhakti. So I'm going to work not just for material reasons, but you dovetail it into a spiritual purpose. That work becomes bhakti. So you'll see yesterday's section was on that, how to make work bhakti. So effectively what you're doing is every single one of your acts can be dovetailed into bhakti yoga with some thinking, some deliberation. We can connect everything to Krishna if we make that effort. And when we do that connection, we're engaged in bhakti yoga. And as Krishna says in the 47th verse of this chapter, there's nobody higher than one who follows bhakti yoga. Does that make sense, Rohan?
Yes, thank you. So it's
Yeah.
just it's always so it's okay to try and get money and stuff as long as if you're using it eventually for the purpose of bhakti.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, absolutely. Even to survive, Krishna does say right at the beginning, if you see one of his verses, he says, who is a yogi, right? Who is a yogi? He's unattached to the fruits of his work. So you go to work, but you're not going to use that just to buy a big car or enjoy, like a holiday in the Bahamas or something like that. Who works as is obligated is in the renounced order of life. So you work, but you're doing it for the pleasure of the Lord. He is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. You still have to do your duty. So you still have to go to work, but you're just converting that work into bhakti. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you so much, Rohan. Appreciate your question. Really good. Anybody else? Any questions? Any doubts? Any challenges? Certainly welcome to question what is being said. Like Arjun has questioned Krishna, and he's questioning him quite hard.
Prabhuji, can I say something else?
Yeah.
If somebody has said to someone, won't say the names, it's not nice, but I don't believe in Bhagavad, or I don't believe in
God.
Ramayana, and I will eat all type of the meat, and I'm still happy. And my parents never said nothing about Ramayana or Bhagavad. And my parents said me, you be happy what you like. And this person has got 3 children, married with a white person. But she's telling, oh, I don't believe in it. And I don't know nothing about Ramayana or nothing about Bhagavad. And I will eat all type different, even beef or crab or anything. So what do you tell to this person?
You don't tell anything. Best thing
And
to do,
carry on.
best thing to do with such a person who you know is going to be sort of angry, perhaps, if you say anything, then you don't say anything. Best thing to do, because if you say something and you make them even more angry, they're going away from Krishna even more. So that's really not good. So we don't try to antagonize them. But what you can do is if you give them prasad, something that you've cooked, you offered it to God, you give them prasad, please eat this mistan. Yes, you can eat whatever you're eating, doesn't matter, but just eat this mistan. What are you doing? By giving them prasad, you're giving them the mercy of God. And in time, that prasad will have an impact over time. But initially, if they're going to argue back with you and, talk all sorts of nonsense, just don't get involved. Don't get involved. Because you're making them, apart from you yourself getting agitated, you're making them go away even further from God.
The way she says that my parents never taught me. So what will you do then? Like, parents never taught the children, so children will never get it.
That's true. I mean, this is one of the problems that we have in our culture. We
And
got such a deep culture.
Yeah. And at present, everywhere, my radio is on. So that's why the spiritual bhajans are on all the time when I'm cooking.
Good.
But even on the radios, that Gujarati radio comes, it keeps saying that teach your children this Gujarati version, everything about Bhagavad, everything about Ramayana. Teach them these new words, what they don't know, and explain them, even all vegetables name, anything. That's how they're going to learn. But if you never teach them, they will never learn.
Another thing you can do, Power Ben, is apart from prasad, if you're close to these people, you can pray to the Lord. Please help them gain some intelligence by understand what is our culture, what is our tradition, So, and you can chant for them as well. If you're really close to them, you can, like we chanted before, you can do one round for them. And in that way, you are actually their well-wisher, even though they don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. It's nice talking. Like it's sometimes things are running on the mind, but it's difficult to bring it out. But this satsang gives us a good opportunity to talk.
No,
anyway, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rohan, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, sorry, I've got it's just a quick question. It's about eating non-sattvic foods. So
Yes.
is it wrong to offer it to Krishna? Because I once heard that you should always offer your food to Krishna before eating it.
You should offer your food, but if When you say non-sattvic, are you talking about onion and garlic?
Yes.
Right. If we offer, yes, you should offer it anyway, even if even if it contains onion and garlic, because the Lord can decide whether he wants to accept it or not, you know. But actually, you should not include onion and garlic in your diet from a young age. The reason being, onion and garlic provoke passion, and we've got enough passion as it is. So what onion and garlic do is it increases the amount of material desires. It has such a negative impact on the consciousness. And if you cook with onion and garlic, even if it's a little bit that you put in, you'll see the whole food will change. The taste will change completely. It will only have the taste of onion and garlic. You're not going to taste the original foods that were cooked. And what's the point of that, you know? So spiritualists, they avoid onion and garlic. And it's a good habit to get into.
Prabhuji, what's the reason why we don't
Increases passion, increases rajagun. Rajagun is increased by onion and garlic.
But if you control your mind, you concentrate with
it's harder.
God, no,
it's harder.
With God, dhyan and pratna and everything.
It's harder. It's harder to control.
But I'm not agree with you.
Yeah, you don't have to agree, but I can tell you it's harder. There's an example. A few years ago, the pilots who were flying aeroplanes were stopped from eating, was it garlic? And onion and garlic before flying. They could not eat it before flying because it had a negative impact on their thought process. So if something is going to not help on the path of spirituality, we avoid it. And I know sometimes, because we've been eating onion and garlic since our birth, so it might be hard to give it up. But we know people who said, I will never give up onion and garlic. And then a few years later, you talk to them and they don't eat onion and garlic anymore. And you think, hang on, how did you do that? And then they explained to me, especially this one family, they explained to me that we used to eat onion and garlic. We thought we'd never give it up. But now we slowly cut it out. And now we can actually taste the food that we're eating, not the onion and garlic, you know?
But sometimes this medicine helps
yes, you don't take, if you're well, you don't take the medicine. If you're not well, yes, you may be able to take that medicine. Isn't it? You don't take a paracetamol every single day, right? Unless you have a headache.
Thank you.
Sometimes it can take time because for years and years, we've been including that in our food. But believe me, once you stop onion and garlic, you will enjoy the food. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Bharti, anything you'd like to share, Bharti, ma'am?
Yes, I would like to share.
Please, please.
Even like everybody else, I loved my onion and garlic. I mean, there's no food without onion and garlic. The first thing that goes into your cooking is either garlic or onion, right? And I think just one day I said, well, what's the big deal? If I want to offer it to Krishna, right? Because all Krishna ever got every day was just rice or a chapati with a bit of butter and gourd, yeah? And I said, what's the big deal, right? So then I started cooking without onion and garlic.
Okay.
And it was a transformation for myself and my family, to be honest.
Okay.
And you know, like we've been doing it for a few years now, and I feel like you know, you can actually, even my kids notice it. You can taste the vegetables better without these pungent vegetables in it, like onion and garlic. So without those two in it, it tastes nicer. So try it a few days in a row, and you will notice a difference in your cooking, in the food
that you eat, you know, mainly for that reason also. Obviously, the spiritual reason there as well. But I found that food tastes better without onion and garlic, you know. And also, and you know what? It just, I don't know how or what, but it tastes better than with onion and garlic.
Without onion and garlic.
No, you know, the food without onion and garlic tastes better than food with onion and garlic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a process in itself, but it's mind over matter. You know, it's like you were saying earlier that, you know, controlling the mind is like a whirlwind, and, you know, it's difficult to control the mind and that. And it's just mind over matter. You just say one day, wake up and say, okay, no onion and garlic, and you're done. So that's why I just share that with you, because that's my own personal experience.
You know, you've given a real life experience, and that's very, I'm thankful for that, you know, because it's really had an impact on you. We don't just saying it, but actually somebody who's actually gone through that process. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, when you eat original food, original way, then its taste is different and nice. This I believe. Like with onion and garlic, make onion and garlic make their strong flavor in the food.
Yeah.
And original taste go away. This I believe. But I don't know. As you said,
it's okay. It'll take time.
We were young, we eat every time, and everybody in family likes it. They don't like without onion and garlic. So you know, it's a.
But you know, if you add hing, there are certain spices which are, and ginger. Oh yes, add more ginger, add more hing, and you'll see the family will be saying, "Hey, this is really nice." They'll be asking you for a recipe.
Just to share a little bit more, what I found, which was kind of a cheat, really, was we go to Shayuna shop, and everything there is without onion and garlic, right? So you can actually pick up different sachets of no onion or garlic powders for different sabjis and curries and biryanis and like that, you know. So you just put a dollop of a tablespoonful, 2 tablespoonful in that, and it just gives a different taste, you know. So they won't even notice there's no onion garlic in it, because the flavors of these different masalas actually blends in with the vegetables. And
very good. Yeah, that's a good example.
Sorry, bro. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. And Madhuban, just try it with the family. And
my reason, especially, you know, these days my BP was very high, nearly 204, and I'm all the time on my own. And medicine, my appointment come after a month. But you believe it or not, I do my yoga in morning, and I started eating early morning raw onion, raw garlic, one, and it makes my BP down. You believe it or not. So I prefer eating that because of my health, not for
that's fine. And once it's down, you controlled it, then you don't keep taking it.
And mostly arthritis. I don't know, sometimes I don't know is exactly right thing I'm doing or not. But I believe that if I cook without garlic, it's still taste is nice. Not I don't need every time, but as I said, since we're young, we just
that's right. That's hard to kick.
And second thing, is there any our religious book has got written you don't have to eat onion and garlic?
It's definitely a practice, a Vaishnav practice, that no onion and garlic is eaten. So you go to any temple, any Vaishnav temple, they will not have onion and garlic unless they're not following the rules of cooking.
No, that's I know that, but is there any
scripture? See, a lot of the vegetables have come from foreign land. You will not hear about potato in any scripture because it's come from outside of India. You will not hear about tomato because it's come from outside of India. You won't hear about carrots. But where, for example, Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is one of the scriptures 500 years ago, it was written, has a description of a lot of different foods. Onion, garlic is not mentioned there. Potato, carrots, tomato, not mentioned in there, because it was never something that was eaten in Bharat. So it's probably not within the scriptures, but we know the impact of these foods. It has an impact, detrimental impact on the mind. So we avoid them. Yeah, we avoid them.
Yeah, maybe you're right. And if we try, it's helpful, could be. But
Yeah,
I
let's
just
do this,
wanted to share my idea, and just I wanted to know more
Sure,
about.
sure. This is the whole idea why we do these classes, is to share these things, and nobody is going to look down on anybody, because this is our practice since birth. But one thing is for sure, if we are offering our food to Krishna, let's do it in the best way possible. So.
And
Oh, sorry,
Mataji, I
what did you say?
started Agyaras already now. And
Oh, well
now
done.
since Mataji told me, since that I used to do, but I stopped it. But since Mataji told me to make chapati, Ferrari chapati, and I started since that Agyaras, I'm keep doing now. Thank you
Very
for
good, very
suggestion.
good.
Thank you.
So, Bhartiben, just explain what you're saying. Oh, you muted, huh?
Yeah, what I wrote was, there are condiments that help certain, aspects or in our life, like blood pressure, cinnamon powder, especially the South Indian cinnamon seems to be really good. And likewise for blood sugar, and that's for blood sugar. And there are other condiments which you can use for your joints, and certain foods to avoid arthritis and things like that. So this is all Ayurveda and that sort of thing. Homeopathy and that. So there are ways of avoiding onion and garlic, but there is something else that will help you as well.
Okay.
So there are
Thank
these
you.
things as well.
Thank
There's
you.
a little bit of research, and I'm not very good at research, but there are things out there which helps us in certain things.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Krishna
Thank you.
does explain in the 16th chapter that he advises against eating pungent food. And pungent food is onion and garlic is pungent food. So he doesn't spell it out, but he explains that pungent food is to be avoided.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you for that discussion. It was very important, actually.
Sorry, could I just ask?
Yes,
So,
yes.
does it incur like bad karma or
No,
something?
it's not bad karma.
Is
It's
it just
to
the?
help you on your spiritual journey. That's the only thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
it's not bad karma. You're not killing life. But you may not be able to, or Krishna may not accept that offering. You may also, mentally not be, helped as much by avoiding it. Focus may not be there. Yeah, many things, but it's not sinful. It's not sinful. It's just it doesn't help us on our spiritual journey. And Rohan, it's not a question of life and death. It's a question of slowly.
But it's increased tamasi mood.
Yeah, it's
that's true.
tamasic or rajasic food. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very good, actually. Very important discussion. Thank you. So if there's nothing else, we can stop there. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai.